All right, good morning. 6:30, Friday, April 16th. Welcome in. Here's the COVID vaccine rollout on Monday. It's 16 plus for all Vermonters, so that should be just about everybody. If you need any assistance signing up for a vaccine, let Health and Safety know. We can easily get you through the easy portal that Vermont Department of Health has. It was really easy for myself to get an appointment on Monday, so it's really pretty straightforward stuff. On the vaccine rollout side of things, we have went over 50% in the state of Vermont, which is great. Threshold at least one dose, so we're getting there. It's hopefully in the next couple weeks and months, we'll be pretty much putting this thing behind us. The latest and greatest on the virus itself is spread. Again, it's mostly Chittenden County here. We are seeing our 7-day average go down, which is great. So keep up the good work. Communication, majority of this is outside of ECI and just kind of keep it that way. So keep it an isolated incident by giving me a call. If you have a known close contact in your household, give me a call so we can figure out how to properly follow our protocols and to reduce the spread of the virus. This week's code of conduct is to speak and act supportively of ECI as a company and of our workers. Bendel, is there anything you want to add on the code of conduct this week?
Am I unmuted, Matt?
Yes, you are. We can hear you.
Yeah, speak and act supportively of ECI and as our company and our workers. I think that's a good one. Maybe that's one we ought to hold over for another week and think about it as well. I think one of the things I'll say about that is it takes courage to be positive in our minds. You know, it's hard to be positive. It's easy to be negative. But when we approach a job or any work that we do, if we feel that we're doomed from the beginning, we're probably not going to be as productive and we're not going to get things done. It's harder to talk to the people that you need to talk to and say the right things, but it's a lot easier once you just do it. So that's what I meant about a little bit of courage. I think we got a lot of good things going here. We got a really good season coming up, and part of our work is our culture, and that's a big project, and it can be overwhelming sometimes when we focus on the things and the obstacles that are in the way. You get to the jobs this spring and they're new and they're big and there's a lot of stuff going on. Easy to be overwhelmed, and that puts us into that situation where we might feel a little bit overwhelmed. Break it down into small pieces and try to solve the small things first, and the other stuff is going to come. So probably a long explanation for that code item, but you asked, and I think moving forward, I want everybody to just be thankful for what we have, support each other, and this is an extended family. This is a family that we're with during the day, trying to get work done, and at the end of the year, we're all going to be more successful if we're concentrating on the work. And that means treating each other with the same respect that we want to be treated ourselves. And don't get overwhelmed by the negative stuff. If stuff is starting to go wrong, try to find somebody that you're comfortable talking to, whether it's something with your layout, whether it's something with your crew. Pick one thing and solve it. That's what we're getting paid to do here. That's why a lot of us come to this type of work, because we want to have the pride at the end of the day that we did something and that we feel good about it. So speak and act supportively of each other and of the company, because anytime you've ever stepped up to the plate and taken and had that thing that bothered you for a week and you finally dealt with it, something probably changed when you asked. So that being said, Matt, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks for sharing, Ben. Health and safety news, excellent job over the last week. No incidents to report. So 134 days without a recordable injury. So our risks are starting to go up as projects are starting to start, and majority of our employees are back working. So now is the time to really hone in and focus in on our daily JHAs, communicating those site hazards, identifying where the highest risks are, and making sure that we have proper controls to mitigate those risks. If you need any help with mitigating risk, Call Health and Safety and we'll gladly come out to do some awareness training or any additional types of assist navigating you with on-site hazards. So one of the biggest on-site hazards that we're going to have in the upcoming season is just the amount of road work that we're going to be doing. We're going to have a lot of potential of struck by hazards with regarding our work zones. So before we really get going, we always want to make sure the hierarchy of controls are being discussed to making sure that we're trying to mitigate our traffic as best we can. And that's by, the projects that we can do a detour or where we can really isolate ourselves using Jersey barriers. Regarding with all of our, pre-construction work is the traffic control plan piece of this is really making sure try to create the safest environment possible. Sometimes though, due to circumstance, traffic, time of day, we're going to have high volume or potential high exposures on those projects. We need to kind of identify those and making sure that we kind of follow our best practices. So before we kind of get into our best practices, I kind of wanted just to talk about some of the risks to remember regarding any job that we're doing on the roadway. Roadway fatalities in road construction sites over the last 2 years, we've seen 259 deaths in the United States. That's 2 every week. So this is why this is a huge, huge emphasis. It's an emphasis for VOSHA, OSHA, really any safety professions. It's like, how can we work safer on the roadways? Because it's really the outside environment being struck by vehicles traveling through our work zones is our biggest risk of exposures. So some things to kind of think about is that feet per second of oncoming vehicles traveling. We're getting some interference. Could everybody please mute yourself, please? Thank you. Feet per second on oncoming traffic. So if you take 1.5 times the posted speed, you'll get that feet per second. So you take 50 miles per hour, that's about 75 feet per second that vehicle is traveling, approaching your work zone. So it's very important to think about that, how quickly things, especially on the interstate, we're doing a decent amount of work on the interstate or at high speeds, so high posted speeds. So it's very important to consider that and then making sure that we follow our best practices. So our best practices always have a plan, making sure that we have the traffic control plan, we understand our traffic control plan, and we're reviewing it with all members, subcontractors that are on the project, so we all have a clear idea of the potential, where our live travel lanes are versus our closed travel lanes are. Again, our closed travel lanes is our work area, could be identified by Jersey barriers, by barrels, by cones. We always want to stay within those cones at all times, or barricades or Jersey barriers as much as we can, because once we step out into a live travel lane, that is where the major exposure is. So always discuss access and egress in and out of our work zones and inside our internal traffic control. If we're moving in via trucks, or if we physically have to walk in and out of a live lane of traffic, how we're going to go about do that. Are we going to have spotters? Are we going to mitigate that by not allowing anybody to be in that live lane? Each site is going to have its different types of circumstances. So we just need to make sure we assess and have a plan to making sure that we really minimize the amount of potential of workers in a live lane. So keep yourself and your fellow coworkers inside the closed lanes as much as possible. Always try to remember those blind spots. Those blind spots are really the ones that are going to get us. Some of the incidents that I talked about the 259, couple of those are backing incidents inside the traffic control plan, trucks backing over somebody. So it's very important that it's a very tight, congested site. Most road work jobs are. So remember those blind spots. Be visible all times and wear your PPE. You know, those are really the best practices, how to be safe inside our work zones. So remember this moving forward this week. Really put emphasis on any road job that you're on, that you discuss that with the morning JHAs, so you can work safe and sound each and every day. Everybody can go home safe and sound, tell their loved ones at home. With that said, I'll pass it over to Ken for the rest of our presentation this morning.
Okay, thanks, Matt. I guess the key is not to be complacent around traffic. And it happens because you're out there so much you get used to it, but that's what catches up with you.
Well said.
Okay, I'm gonna switch over to my screen. Do you see the email of the week?
We do.
Okay. So this week we talked about the work zone awareness and struck by hazards. Announcements, we have the same announcements from last week. First is the healthcare premium policy. So everyone this week should notice that there are no healthcare premium deductions in their paycheck, and that'll go on for a total of 9 weeks. So pretty excited about that. And that's due to the fact that Cigna gave us a rebate with this new program we're on called a level funded plan, so that we didn't spend as much, so they gave us some of the money back. I'm sure not all of it. And the wellness program is another thing we had. Let me first just summarize it. We're working with Champlain Medical Urgent Care to create a wellness program to provide free medical visits at their facility on Kennedy Drive for an annual physical exam, including blood work and screening. That's really the starting point for everybody who wants to participate. Then follow-up visits if you have chronic care issues, unlimited urgent care visits. So if you have a personal medical issue and you need to be seen right away, the nice thing about Champlain Medical is the wait is really non-existent. You can pretty much just show up and wait in line, and that's it, instead of waiting for an appointment. So they're meant to be free for all ECI employees, whether or not you're on the health insurance program. And we're requesting input from employees. We had a meeting on Tuesday. We're going to have one on today if we need it. If anyone's interested, you should reach out to Alberta or Matt, and we'll probably have a quick little get together, or maybe a Teams meeting or something like that. So let them know. We did have a meeting on Tuesday and had a fair number of people attend with a lot of interest. And what we're going to do is just roll this out. The meeting was just to get some feedback on what people might have for questions, but also to see if we can, help everyone, use everyone to help guide us to get the format that works. So for right now, if you want to get involved in this plan right away, it really is available. So just check with the Health and Safety Department, but you could also call Champlain Medical directly and tell them you're an ECI employee in the wellness program and you want to set up an appointment for your baseline physical and then whatever urgent care you might have. So for new employees this week, we have, I guess that format didn't separate. I tried to separate the two names here, Sawyer Dean on the left and Eric Lackey on the right. So welcome, guys. They will be on the job site out there, so watch for them and say hello and make them feel comfortable and get them to understand anything that they are curious about ECI, and have them introduce them to others once you meet them. For the weather outlook, just the winter storm warning for parts of Vermont, just that spring can be cruel here. So there's heavy wet snow expected mainly from 1,500 feet up across portions of the North Country. So that is just a reminder that spring is not spring always. And then it hopefully it'll return to a little bit more moderate weather, a little bit more rain and stuff too. The rain was good and good for the lake, good for keeping the risk of fire down and everything. So that was good to see, really, even though it slows things down and gets uncomfortable. We're still waiting from AGC for the COVID policies, so we're going to hopefully have that in next week's email, but not guaranteeing it since they haven't come through yet. So for this week, we're going to show on the project of the week a couple projects, and both projects were highlighted in these recent issues of construction trade journals. This is the Northeast Journal of the North American Society for Trenchless Technology, and they did an article called Culvert Thwart Future Hurricanes. And then this is on the project of VTrans New Haven RREW 001, culvert replacement under the Vermont Railway. There was 2 of those culverts under that contract. One was in New Haven, the other was in Ferrisburg. And there's a link to the article. And it was a cover article as well, as you see. And the other one that came this week was the New England Construction Magazine. They did an article called Greater Mobility in Middlebury on the VTrans Middlebury WCRS 23 project. That's the Middlebury Tunnel. And again, there's a link to the article. And you see we're right there front and center on the cover sheet. We were not the primary subject of the article because Kubricki is the prime contractor. We're a subcontractor. We've done a lot of the work there with them. But we were fortunate enough to have our name and our equipment profiled right on the front cover. So I figured that this week we should go revisit some of the pictures from these projects, because this particular one, the first one, the New Haven and Ferrisburg culvert replacements under the VTR, was started and completed back in 2017. Sometimes these trade magazines take a couple of years. It was surprising it took this long to get their article in and organized and published. So this was a view of the project from up on Lime Kiln Road, or very near Lime Kiln Road. The tracks are down below next to the Velco lines. And this was a skid that we put the hammer, the driving hammer on to drive the pipe. It was a guided bore, so that drill steel sticking out, small diameter sticking out of the sheeting was the hole that was, I believe that was the hole that was drilled for the, I think that's drill steel for the, with a directional drill. We used a directional drill to guide a pilot hole, and then drove a larger casing and then even a larger casing. I think that was it 72 inch? Can't recall. Do you recall, Matt?
That is correct.
Yep. Okay, so there we are driving with that beast of a hammer, a 24-inch hammer, I believe it was. We just hammered it, big hammer, supported by our crane. A couple of reps from the hammer company. And then this was maybe the same one. Yeah, I think this is the same project. There was 2 of them, like I said, 2 sites, and then we're pouring footings for the head wall, and then doing the precast head wall, and then a picture of one of the completed head walls out of 4. And then the other project that was profiled was the VTrans Middlebury WCRS 23, the Middlebury Tunnel project that was started in 2018 and actually is still ongoing this year in 2021. We have to drive some more sheeting, and for permanent sheeting, we have some work that we're subcontracting with now, some new work for us on some cast in place tops to the tunnel walls. So this was back in the early work package doing the drainage tunnel work, and this was a TBM piece to an auger bore machine that was used to cut the 60-inch diameter hole into the rock. You see we're in a rock shaft there, and there were 3 drives. One was an outfall and one was upstream, or to the south along the railroad, and then for the tunnel, and then to the north. So obviously it all pitched down to this hole and then out into the to the river, which was the discharge end. There's a picture of the pattern. It's always, patterns are always cool for the at the TBM head, and it does certainly create a neat, unique pattern. It's a rock hole, so it's pretty cool. Here's one of the completed holes, waiting to set up, it looks like, to go to one of the other, in the other directions, roughly in a third split throughout the shaft. Now, this is later on, we're doing some of the utility relocation for the tunnel work and driving the sheets. There's a lot of sheets, I don't know, thousands of feet of linear feet of sheeting for sure. Then once the railroad shut down, we took apart the tracks and then excavated and did the subgrade work and built more track in order for replacement track. And there was some retaining wall that was built at the both ends, the north and the south end, because of the tunnel section. So there's like a drop in grade where it gets down to the tunnel portal. The tunnel was a precast. All this was precast for the U shape, the sections here, which go down into the tunnel further in that picture. And all that was a precast, a two-piece precast on the end. And then the wall tops we're going to put in this year where the rebar are sticking up next to the sheets. And right there, we're doing some of the lining on the bottom. It was called a ballast mat material. And then this was the opening day where the train was going through and there was a celebration from the town. And from the photo archives, we have a picture of the old underpasses in Middlebury prior to all this work, obviously 2003. And they were pretty rickety old bridges, not very well built at all. It didn't meet current standards, didn't meet the standards for the road surface above and the sidewalks and that sort of thing. And also a big nuisance for the railroad. See, it was on kind of a fairly tight curve here. The ice would build up in the winter. This is obviously a winter shot, and you can see the ice there. And actually, it's not clear, but the ice even in this picture had been chipped away by the railroad. They would have to go in there occasionally and just make sure that the tracks were clear and that the ice wasn't building up a condition that would derail a train. And there was actually a derailment, not due to ice, but other conditions back, oh boy, it was about this time in the early 2000 time, where there was several gasoline tankers that derailed and actually had a huge spill. So all that stuff was a consideration for the new project. So that's what I got. Matt, I'll turn it back over to you. And then let's see everybody have a safe day out there. Be careful of the road conditions if you're in a higher elevation area. And we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks for the 65 people that jumped on with us today. Good amount of participation. If you watched it with anybody, please shoot me a message so we can have a good idea, documentation for training for all of our employees. Have a safe day. Be in touch soon.